Okay, hello everybody. I cannot see the participants, but I hope you're plenty at this summer afternoon, end of July, where at least in Brussels, we still have some people around, but we are getting to the all-deserved summer break. And today for us is a special day because we published this morning the report, the Media Freedom Rapid Response Report about the situation in Italy. As you probably all know, we did an urgent mission an advocacy mission to Rome, May 16th and 17th, actually on request of our partners in Italy. We took this urgency very seriously because they have been telling us, and also other reports, that the situation regarding media freedom indeed is worsening, and it is worsening at an unprecedented scale and velocity. You also know that our report is coming now in a series of reports on Italy. We had the Media Pluralism Monitoring Report, which is a yearly exercise by the Florence Institute. And this year, I think there was more attention to it, specifically in Italy, than in years before, specifically regarding the attacks against the RAI. A little later, the Rule of Law report came out by the European Commission. There had been quite a little bit of polemics around the question of when it would be published, as there had been some voices that von der Leyen may not want to publish it before her re-election in order to get support from Meloni. This was not the case. She also didn't get support from Meloni. And we heard yesterday in the news, actually, that Meloni said that this Rule of Law report is actually fake news, that it is done by professionals of disinformation and mystification. I quote that, and I include myself in this attack. So here we are today with yet another report, and I would like to stress that this report is done by press freedom organizations, including the European Federation of Journalists, with the support of the European Commission, but absolutely independent of both the European Commission, but also of the local partners who asked us to come. And these are our member, the Federation, the Italian Journalist Union, but also the Ordine, the Chamber of Journalists, civil society organizations like Amnesty International, but also like Article 21, which is fighting freedom of expression. And we met during that mission opposition leaders, we met the media regulatory authorities, we met many journalists, and unfortunately, we were refused to meet members of the ruling coalition, which normally when we do such missions, it's a normal take that we have a constructive discussion, maybe not always constructive, but at least a dialogue with those who are responsible for the laws on media freedom. This was not happening. We will discuss that later. Just before, and I will not now make a summary of the report because I'm very happy to have some outstanding journalists here today with us. Just one point I would like to mention, coming from the mapping media freedom data, which is also in the report, is there has been, since Meloni took over, there have been 193 alerts between October 22 and June 24. This has been a big augmentation to the years before. And 54 of these sources of incidents are coming from the government and from public officials. I think that talks for itself. So, Francesca, happy to have you here with us. You are a journalist working with Domani. Actually, Domani is a progressive newspaper that exists since 2020, and it had been bought by your name, we say in German, name cousin, De Benedetti, because La Repubblica had been sold to a big industrial group. And so we have in the Italian landscape a relatively new independent voice. The problem is specifically Domani has been attacked and targeted, including legal warnings, formalized lawsuits, verbal assaults, you name it, since these last 2 years. What is, in your view, at stake? Why are they so angry about Domani? What is happening? But also, and this is, I think, a very interesting question, as we, at least those who are reading Italian news, learned a few days ago that Meloni withdrew one of the lawsuits against Domani. Actually, there has not only been one. Is that the pressure? Is it because of the rule of law report? Is it because all of us voicing up? Is it that she's realizing maybe she went a bit too far? She also wrote a letter to von der Leyen saying that the rule of law report contains more fake news than any truth, and that it's done by professionals of disinformation and mystification. So at least I take this as an also attack against myself, against Serena, against all of us. So, Francesca, I'm very curious of what you think about all this.
Well, thank you very much, Renate, for introducing me. Thank you all for the invitation. Let me just say that I'm not at all a member of the De Benedetti family, although this was also used as a way to delegitimize Domani's work, of course. But I will start with the end of the story, with what you said about the letter written by Meloni. Well, I studied the report you wrote about the mission, and I was, I felt represented by your report, and there are 2 points that I think are particularly important. One is that when a public official or a politician or even a prime minister attacks journalists, this means that we are all more fragile because everyone feels free to attack journalists. So this is a very bad kind of message that Meloni is giving us. And when she writes a letter to the Commission criticizing the media freedom organizations, I think she's giving us a further evidence about the fact that she's really intolerant towards criticism. So I think that this move somehow confirms all the studies that have been done. I think about the Global Index, I think about the Media Pluralism Monitor, and I think about your report. So it is clear to me that there is a trend. So what's the role of Domani in this story? When Domani was born in 2020, of course, we knew that we were a newly born independent newspaper. So we thought we could have had a really hard life, because when you somehow challenge power, you are prepared to be criticized or attacked. But what we did not recognize was that we would have become a target. I think about colleagues of mine, which in their journalistic life have even been under police protection. I think about Giovanni Tiziano, Nello Trocchia. They challenged the criminal organizations, mafia, and so on. And it is a paradox to me that at the moment they are attacked by the government. So the institutions that should somehow protect our work or guarantee that we can do it freely, they are the first that attack us. Domani was somehow a sentinel, because we were attacked at first when RAI still was not a case. So there was not a debate about Tele Meloni when Meloni started challenging Domani. So I think we are an interesting case because of this. It all started even before Meloni became a prime minister, because as you said, Renate, Meloni herself challenged Domani. She did it in October 2021. And it was not because someone of us wrote something which was not true. Of course, we only write true facts with evidences, with strong evidences. But she used defamation law just to start a trial. And she did not renounce to go on with this legal challenge, although I remember that even Daphne Caruana Galizia's sister was denouncing the fact that the prime minister, with all the power she's got, was attacking a small independent newspaper. She only renounced to this legal challenge a few days ago. So what's the reason why she did that? Well, I think, first of all, if you want to write to Ursula von der Leyen and say that it is not true that you attacked free press, it would be quite embarrassing to bring an independent newspaper in a trial. But I'm also persuaded that our collective work in trying to protect the journalistic rights, it really has an impact. And I've seen it also with the other episodes that happened to Domani. So let me say this story very short. We had a lot of slaps. This is the so-called strategic lawsuits against public participation, or vexatious lawsuits. And in your report, you testify that there is a surge of slaps in Italy. Well, Domani itself was attacked lots of times. We were attacked by the Undersecretary at the Ministry of Labor, Claudio Durigon, in February 2023. We were attacked with legal challenges by the Undersecretary Giovan Battista Fazzolari. I'm reading a list because it's really long. We've been there were announcements by Ministers Giancarlo Giorgetti and Daniela Santalché. There were legal challenges by Gaetano Caputi, which is Meloni's head of cabinet. So we really have a crew. The government started using vexatious lawsuits against Domani. So, of course, this is a story, but the thing that impressed me the most is that the Prime Minister herself attacks journalists in her public speeches. She did it several times, and it is good to remember it to our audience, because, well, you know, when journalists make questions to the Prime Minister, well, she reacts in a very bad way. In February 2023, there was a press conference in Berlin with the Chancellor Olaf Scholz. And Italian journalists made questions, which is what journalists do. And Meloni attacked them by saying that they were somehow attacking the nation because they were making questions in Berlin. Or in March 2024 in Pescara, there were regional elections. Meloni was on the stage. She was trying to gain votes. And she attacked journalists again. And she attacked Domani in particular. So she went straight against one newspaper, which is very unusual to me. And recently, there even was a press conference of two prime ministers, the Italian one and the Albanian one, which jointly attacked the Report newsroom. So I think that when in your report, when you talk about verbal attacks, well, this fits the category absolutely. And so I think that the mood is very bad, because I think of journalists fighting against criminal organizations, abuse of power, corruption. So what happens when these people know that even the prime minister joins them in attacking journalists? It is very dangerous. And of course, Domani has been considered as a political target, because at the moment we have 3 journalists of my newsroom which are risking 9 years of jail. It all started with their report about an eventual conflict of interest of a minister, the defense minister Crosetto. We have vexatious lawsuits, we have verbal attacks. So we have lots of attacks against us. But just to conclude with a positive conclusion, I will make an example about how strong collective reaction can be. In March 2023, I guess, there was a police raid in Domani's newsroom. it was triggered with a slap made by Claudio Durigon. The police came to seize the article, which was available online, so everyone could read this, but the police came to seize it. At that time, of course, given that I'm also a trade unionist in my newsroom, I called the European Federation of Journalists asking, do you think it's normal that the police came to seize an article? And the EFJ told me, no, of course, this sounds like an intimidation. So what I did was trying to spread the story in English just to let the European public opinion be aware of that. And so the MEPs started questioning the European Commission. There was a huge mobilization of press freedom organization. And by the way, let me thank you all, because your work is really precious to us. So what happened was that the story came out in the European press. There was the Politico Playbook, which is really read in Brussels, that wrote the story. And so it happened that the judge said, yeah, I read from the press that we were seizing an article. Maybe it was not a valid act. So they read the story in the European newspaper, and they concluded that it was not good, of course, to enter a newsroom and to seize an article. This is a really small example, but it gives you an understanding about how important it is to mobilize all together. And I think that in Italy, in the recent months, we understood that attacks are not only against Domani, they are also against RAI, they are against Report, they are against AGI. So they started with Domani, but then the trend went on. So I am quite positive in the sense that I really can see that reacting all together to protect freedom of expression in free press really has an impact. So thank you for inviting me here, and I let the stage to the other speakers too. I don't want to take too much time.
Thank you very much, Francesca, and thank you very much for your inspiring and motivating words, because this is what we are here for. And there is so much negative trends at the moment that we need to hear that little success stories, and we need to hear and feel there is a meaning of solidarity, the word of journalist unions, and collective action. And to be honest, when I was in Rome last month, no, already 2 months ago, I felt that. And I have been in Italy quite often, and I have not always felt that, to be very honest. But maybe it's because of the urgency of the situation. When we were at the speaking corner of RAI, I felt there was solidarity from students, from cultural organizations, from La Stampa, from the traditional press, for RAI. And that has been news to me and very encouraging, to be honest. So we have to continue. We are at the beginning. I still find it quite interesting that Meloni seems to be so afraid of a small independent newspaper that talks for itself. Of course, the smashing and banging, we know, in 2016, we said it's a Trump effect. Unfortunately, the Trump effect is going throughout Europe, and it's not getting better. And Meloni is only one example of that. So we still have to do a lot of action to continue. Having said that, I'm now turning to Alessandra. Very happy, Alessandra, to have you here. You are not only a member of the EFJ Broadcasting Expert Group, which is there to primarily defend public service broadcasting in Europe. You're also an editor-in-chief of, maybe you can say it better, Spitz TG.
Is the news in TG1, the main news of the first channel of RAI. Yes,
you are
I work as a chief editor of the newsroom that made the magazine of inside information and investigation a little bit, but not
you are in the middle
report
that you are in the middle of activities dealing with news, you know very much what's happening, and you also know that situations of the RAI has been one of the 3 pillars for our mission, and that we indeed have seen unprecedented challenges. We also have seen Meloni's report, and I'm quoting it again, saying, and partly rightly, that the problems of RAI are not due to Meloni, but there had been political pressure, not always, but that the Renzi law was the one that sort of was responsible for the politicization of the board. And that, of course, is true. The question now is...
Excuse me, Renata,
Yeah.
I'll ask to David to close the microphone.
Sorry, okay.
Thank you. Excuse me.
No,
Okay.
you're right. So the question is now, what is at stake? It's not only the politicization of the RAI board, it seems there is much more. Again, Meloni said in her letter, it's normal that journalists are leaving, it's normal that program makers are leaving, they find better opportunities abroad. To us from the outside, it seems the RAI, which indeed was always characterized by a sort of lottizzazione, is becoming a sinking boat. So what is your stake in that? And why do you think the RAI board, which was supposed to be appointed by late of June, has not been appointed yet? Was Meloni maybe afraid of the rule of law report and she wants to do it now in August when everybody is at the beach? Or what could be her playbook here? Thank you, Alessandra.
Yes, thank you to you, Renata, for the invite. I bring, of course, I bring you greetings from RAI Journalist Union Secretary Makeda, Daniele Makeda, and from President of Federation of Vittorio di Trapani. Yes, I start as Francesca to the letter of Meloni after the publication of rule of the law, denying that there are problems of compression of press freedom in Italy and in RAI particularly. I read the report of Media Freedom Rapid Response, and it is clear, well described censorship, self-censorship, the great risk for independence from any political influence of the public service. So it's well known what happened. 2 years ago, Meloni wins the election, makes the CEO resign and put one close to her, and appoints, moreover, a new corporate general manager who has been very close to her since the youth years of politics. And in that time, the directors responsible for news and program were be replaced. 5 out of 8 were replaced, and we have assisted to continuous attacks on report. That is the only investigative program in RAI, with many vexatious lawsuits as for the money against Sigfrido Ranucci by government ministers, and is summons to the commission, parliamentary commission that control the public service. Moreover, many well-known faces and loved by public quitted the public service to escape pressure or no longer find an atmosphere of freedom and serenity in which work. They are being attacked by Meloni and ministers, denouncing they were moved by economic reasons. And you know, the well-known case of censorship as the Scurati case on 25 April, in which there was a monologue that has been concealed, and the journalist responsible of the program, Serena Bortoni, who denounced on social media the censorship, has been put under disciplinary procedure, and she has received a 6-day suspension. Her program has been canceled, and now she will have a program on radio. But the consequence of this management go behind the compression of freedom of expression. A report by Communication Regulatory Authority this day shows, is a very alarming data, that RAI has lost 1 million viewers of RAI's news in the first 3 months of the years. Moreover, reduction of the RAI budget in the last budget law with the cut of license fee from 19 euro to 70 euro is a reduction of about 400 million. But you have to remember that a previous reduction in resources had been made by the Renzi government. Resources that will be given by the government year per year in the budget law, a clear way to increase political control and influence in the public service. Now, to answer your question, the board of directors expired in June. Some candidates by an expression of civil society have appealed to the TAR, is a sort of regional justice administration, and the Council of State to keep on hold the parliamentary appointment procedure, in contrast with the MFRR. The Media Freedom Act, and the TAR will decide on 25 October, on October 25, but the Council of State has rejected the appeal. Therefore, the Parliament can proceed. But there are contrasts inside the center, the right coalition between Fratelli d'Italia, the party of the Premier, and Lega of Salvini. Meloni would like to proceed immediately. Salvini wants to take time. He prefers September. He even talks about making a new law on governance. They argue over the seats, of course, the occupation denounced by Yusigrai, but a meeting is scheduled on Wednesday. We will see. But we know that we already know that the next CEO is designated is the current corporate general manager, who will become a CEO, and the only interest appears the division of appointments and the control of storytelling and information. With I want to underline a repressive policy
Thank you very much, Alessandra. Thank you very much. And I can assure you that we from the EFJ, with all our partner organizations, and also the EBU, I think that's very important, that we not only will do everything to make sure that the European Media Freedom Act and its famous Article 5 regarding the independence of the board, but also the need for financial sustainability will be used as an important pressure. It won't be easy, but it's at the moment the main tool we have, and we will need it. And we are also at the moment already starting to talk to MEPs and to tell them about the importance of public service media and the importance of independence. And we will also in the autumn talk to the new commission to make sure that they will take any infringements regarding the MFRR very seriously. We all know for that we need political will, and to get the political will done, such collective action is indeed important. And I would also like to take this moment to really congratulate Usigrai for their excellent work. They have been working day by day really to raise the attention, but I also know that the general public, who has already been a bit alienated from public service media, this is also a common trend throughout Europe. People say public service media is too left-wing, is too close to the elite, too close to the government. We have had this storytelling since COVID, so there is a lot of work to do. But for that, we need funding, and for that, we need good journalists in the boat. So thank you for that.
Thank you to you. Thank you.
I will now, before we hopefully have some questions, go on to Davide Sarsini, who is a journalist at AGI, which is one of the bigger Italian news agencies, I think since the 50s, specifically focusing on economy and industry, and facing some problems these days. There has been a lot of polemic around, and I think I will give the floor to you, David, to tell us what is at stake. Anybody, rumor has it, wants to buy the news agency, a politician maybe even. Isn't that a conflict of interest? What is your take, and are there any latest development we may have not heard since our mission? Thank you very much. And you have to unmute yourself.
Here we are. I'm sorry, I'm in a bar at the moment, so maybe there might be some noise, but it's just I'm on a short break from work. So thank you for your invitation, Renate, and hello to everybody. Let me introduce myself for first thing. I'm chief editor for Italian affairs at AGI. I've been working for the foreign desk for more than 20 years, so I have an international experience at my news agency. And as you probably read from the report and from the news, my news agency has been in the news because there is this possibility that it is sold to a private editor who is also a member of parliament. Let me just start reminding a bit of a story of our news agency that was established in 1950, and it became property of any energy group in 1965. Since then, AGI has become a very important news agency in Italy, very reliable. It has always assured pluralism, trying to give voice to everybody, along with ANSA, that is the biggest Italian news agency. And especially it has a special focus on international affairs and economic affairs, but it's been covering also Italian politics, and it has a network also of coverage on all the old Italian territory. What has happened, let's say at the end of last year, there were the first rumors about possible sale of news agency. Let me say this, that since I entered AGI, there has always been rumors that it could be sold by Eni, because they always say that Eni, of course, is not a group that is in the media, primarily in the media, so there has always been rumors of a possible sale. But this time it's been different, because the rumors turned out to be more than just rumors. And on the 10th of April, actually, Eni confirmed that there were contacts with a private editor. This is the group of Antonio Angelucci, who is an entrepreneur, very famous in the health sector. He has many hospitals, many private clinics but above all, is a member of parliament with Lega, that is one of the center-right parties in the majority that now governs Italy. So this has turned an alarm bell even more, not just because of the possible sale, but because of the conflict of interest that this would pose, and the risk of not being able to guarantee pluralism anymore. Of course, for news agency, autonomy is essential, because its role is that it must assure an information that can be used by all kinds of media with any political inclination, and this is essential for us. What happened after the 10th of April? It was my birthday, so I remember it well, when Eni actually confirmed that there was these contacts were going on with Angelucci. There have been many voices, many rumors since then, but actually no effective announcement. Even now, we don't know if the contacts have interrupted or not. What we know is that the public campaign that has been done by our trade union and by all of our journalists to try to return to all the political spectrum. Of course, we had audience, especially from the opposition parties, but there were also many independent voices who said that this is a very important battle for the freedom of information, because it's not just like for a newspaper. I mean, a newspaper can, of course, change editor and still maybe change some of the positions, but still remain, with its public. For a news agency, it would be the start of the end, because when you are bought by a group that has such a political identification, has to be guided by a member of parliament of the party, which like Angelucci is a member of Lega, and Lega is the same party of the economy minister who controls Eni. So this is where the big conflict of interest lies. I mean, there is an operation which is done with the complicity of the government, and at the same time, they are transferring an asset, a media asset, to a group that is that belongs to an entrepreneur of the same party. So there is a big conflict of interest, but I say more, I think that it could be something dangerous, not just for our news agency, but for all news agencies, because if something like this can be carried on, probably in the future, other news agencies might be bought by politicians or get involved in political operations such as this one. So the battle that we've been doing, we already done many days of strike. There's been an important sit-in in Pantheon in the center of Rome, where many political leaders came and spoke in defense of our independence. So this is a battle that has grown very public, and we think that probably we have managed at least to delay this operation. At the moment, I must say, we don't have any news, which might be worrying, because sometimes when you don't have any news, you know, like in August, at the beginning of summer holidays, we can expect anything. So we don't really know what will happen. We know that somehow this operation has been delayed, because otherwise probably it would already been carried out. We will carry on being very vigilant, and we ask for, of course, for all other media who have supported us to keep on keeping the spotlight on this case, because I think that it might be really somehow the proof of whether public, Italian freedom of press in Italy can remain as it has been, or if there is really a decay of this kind. So we ask you to keep the spotlight on our story, and of course we will keep you informed when we will have any news. Of course, we probably, if there is an announcement, everybody will know, but we will keep in touch, because we think it's important that such a story can be monitored by the media.
Thank you, David. And I think you're right. I mean, Italy has been sort of seen as the country of conflict of interest. We all remember Berlusconi. But this is almost another precedent, because it's dealing with a news agency, as you rightly said. It's not a right or left-wing paper. It's an autonomous news agency. Other media then need to have credibility and confidence in using such. So we will follow what you tell us and continue to ring the alarm bell. I think it's very important that we added AGI in our report. It's part of, as we call, media capture, which is a general trend of political and economical influence. And I think RAI has been a very good example, but this potential selling of AGI as well. Before now, I'm giving the floor to Serena with some recommendations, ideas, and capping it up. I just want to refer to one comment we had, saying that indeed there are also many other attacks against journalists, specifically digital attacks and attacks relating to spyware. And yes, we also have many problems regarding safety, and that's why we will be having another mission on safety with some specific safety training in October in Naples. This is just another information. For me, this was not a question. I don't know if anybody wants to say something on that. Otherwise, I would give the floor to Serena, and we can have also with you a debate at the very end on now how to go forward. I would propose that. So Serena, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Renate. Thank you very much also to Alessandra, Francesca, and Davide for sharing your experience and very precious testimony also with all of us today. I just wanted to conclude this discussion, this debate, by pointing out 3 key remarks, concluding remarks, if we want to call them like that, and a set of few recommendations that we have elaborated in our report. So first of all, as we have seen, thanks to our guest testimonies, in Italy, press freedom and media freedom is indeed under serious pressure. Media freedom has to face a lot of challenges, ranging from the independence and political interference in the functioning of the public service media, from legal threats that are on the rise to market concentration and conflict of interest. What is particularly worrying is that these kind of negative trends have somehow became more serious and even got worse in the past 2 years. So we have actually witnessed a deterioration of press freedom standards in our country, which indeed has also a negative impact on the democratic quality of our country. Second, what we have remarked also in our report is that in Italy we do have an urgent need to transpose and to somehow align the Italian legislation to European and international standards on press freedom and freedom of information. There are some newly adopted norms at the European level. We have named, for example, the European Media Freedom Act, the Anti-SLAPP Directive. So in the coming months, Italy will be required to actually transpose and implement these norms. And in this regard, civil society, professional associations, trade union will have space to keep doing the advocacy work, keep putting pressure also on decision maker, and especially in trying to seeking a constructive dialogue with the decision makers. The third issue that I wanted to highlight here is that, and that is something that we also have highlighted in our report, is the fact that despite several meeting requests, no one from the ruling coalition agreed to meet the European delegation of the MFRR when we went to Rome. This for us, this is a sign of both an intolerance towards criticism, as we have repeated during this debate, but also somehow a lack of political will to both acknowledge and especially address these kind of issues affecting media freedom and the journalistic community in our country. To conclude, I just wanted to mention some of the recommendations that we have put forward that are addressed to Italian decision makers and that regard the 3 key issues that we have dealt with during our mission and in our report. When it comes to the public service media, what we urge the Italian decision makers, the Italian Parliament, is to start the reform of the current law that legislates the functioning of the RAI, so the public service media, so that it can be actually an independent service, independent media service. And in being an independent media service, RAI will definitely need adequate and sustainable resources and also clear criteria for the appointment of the member of the managing board. So these are the 2 key points that we wanted to highlight. Regarding the AGI and the concentration of the media market, we do urge the owner of the news agency not to proceed with the selling, but if in the case that such a sale will actually happen, we urge the regulatory authority to conduct a thorough and a comprehensive evaluation of this selling in order to assess the possible implications of this kind of selling regarding media pluralism, regarding market concentration and editorial independence. Finally, when it comes to legal threats, we do urge the Italian Parliament to go on with the reform of the defamation regime. But what we do urge the government to do and the Parliament to do is to reform the defamation regime, but keeping in mind the standards and the guidelines from the European law and also international standards of human rights concerning freedom of information. There are 2 key issues that should be taken into account, 2 key points. The first one is public participation, and the second one is public and general interest. So we urge a reform of the defamation regime that will encompass the total decriminalization of the defamation, and also, yes, the stress and the need to put the emphasis on these 2 concepts of public participation and also public interest. Finally, I just want to conclude saying a few words. Renate has already mentioned that the MFRR network and all its partners will go on, will continue the work of advocacy, of monitoring on media-related issues in the country. We will have a focus on the safety of journalists as well. And here again, the fact that there are newly adopted European norms and the fact that the government will be required to take action really opens spaces for us as civil society in cooperation with our local partners to really keep pushing and seeking this kind of this kind of dialogue with the institutional stakeholders and actors. So thank you again from my side, from our side, for joining the discussion. And I thought it was really, really interesting. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Serena, so much for wrapping it all up. And before closing, it really shows how important the link is between the national and the European level, specifically now with these legislations, the MFRR and the anti-SLAPP regulation, but also with the rule of law mechanism. I would like to stress again how important it is, but also how important it is to strengthen it. We as civil society, we will in September, we will have a meeting to discuss internally also our frustrations, because it has been a lot of work to put these reports together. The EFJ and I think all the other organizations, we spent hours to put all that evidence to it. And the European Commission has not all put it in. And they, in generally, understandingly, have sort of made a diplomatic exchange out of that. We understand it in a way, the pressure, the stress on dialogue and finding solutions through dialogue. But we think if the situation worsens and rule of law being at the center of our democratic and fundamental values of what the EU is, maybe we need some other pressures. We need some regarding the conditionality of financing and what have you. Hungary is still the best or the worst case scenario that shows what can happen when the rule of law is not taken seriously. And we know now Orban running around that potential danger there is also on EU integration is large. And if our President von der Leyen, who did stress when she was re-elected the importance of rule of law, does not understand that, I think we will have a problem. Are there any last comments maybe from our dear panelists? Francesca, any last word to Brussels or to Rome or to yourself?
Well, to be honest, when I read the rule of law report, I even found it very mild because, well, if you think about the reports that the media organization did, they were really strong about media freedom under attack. If you read the rule of law report, it is really soft. So if you think that despite this, Meloni attacked both the Commission and the organizations for spreading fake news, here you have a picture of how dangerous the situation is. So I would encourage all of us to continue to speak out. And what I would say, given that when we talk about legal challenges and SLAPPs, you know, even when you read the text of the European law against SLAPPs, there is always a reference to the so-called chilling effect. What I would say is do not make self-censorship, because the first danger at the moment in Italy is that if you have a system that is really controlled and under pressure, the first risk is that we can self-censor ourselves. So I would say let's unite the forces and let's try to resist, because I think that the risk of being intimidating is really strong at the moment. I do agree with Renate. I think that the European Commission, the European Union in general, is making the same mistakes than with Orban, but we have that case. We can see how it happened, that in 2010, there was a law against the media made by Orban, and it took 8 years for the EPP to start thinking about doing something. It took 10 years for the European Commission to start thinking of a mechanism. But we have that experience, we have that past, we can learn from experience. So I think we should speak out loudly. So good luck to all of us at the end.
Thank you, Francesca. I completely agree with you. And I also remember even the rule of law mechanism has started very mightily. And with the help of civil society, we have to be able to improve it with country recommendations, with including also civil society in dialogues. We know that the College United will never come up with a very, very strong language. That's sort of EU communication per se. But that doesn't prevent us from being strong and from asking to get this work stronger. Thanks a lot. Alessandra, do you have some final words?
I totally agree. I was reading the message, one message, but now I'm totally agree with Francesca. So there is no much to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Davide?
Just a final word to thank you for this meeting and to say to all of us, of course, to keep a light focus on these issues that are very important. I think we must reaffirm every day that these are not political battles. I think that we want to make a battle that is for the freedom of information, and that it's important that we guarantee it for today, but also for the future, for tomorrow, because probably what happens today will have an impact on tomorrow and on freedom of information in Italy, and I would say in Europe, because it's not just Italy, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Davide. You are absolutely right. This is not a political message, and it's also a confirmation of our slogan that journalism is a public good, and as such, we defend it. I just have another comment saying that the Italian government indeed was not very smart. Even the Greeks were smarter, because at a former mission, MFRR mission to Greece, they met the delegation, and even the Republic's Svenska in Bosnia-Herzegovina met the delegation, but I think the situation there is still much worse. And I have hope, because we felt there is an active civil society in Italy, maybe more focused in Rome. I don't know if we go to the more local area, how the situation would be there. That is another interesting discussion for the future. So thank you, all of you, very much for taking the precious time at a hot Monday. Is it Monday? Monday afternoon. And see you all soon, I hope. Thanks a lot.